So we need to put on a play, and you know how it is at kindergarten New Year's parties. Besides Father Frost and the Snow Maiden, there was always some other character who would run onto the stage and he'd have a sign hanging on him that said year. Well, the new year would come running in. Yeah, you remember, right? That ridiculousness in kindergartens. So let's imagine that something like that runs onto the stage. It'll be, well, honestly, a scary scarecrow. Because when we think about an emotional year, we shouldn't just think about the highs of the wave. This program isn't about the highs of the wave. A person with emotional definition has both the highs and the lows of the wave. The program doesn't have any of that. The program only has the low of the wave, just so you understand. And that's what will be expressed. That's all there is to it. So this is a stormy year, because the expression in the throat of the emotional wave, 35 to 36, in its movement between experiences of darkness into the darkness of the pit, the experiences of falling into the darkness of the pit of life of the 36th, and the euphoria of hoping that only good things lie ahead. There will be euphoria too. It will be there because this will be connected to the fact that we have almost 3 months of transits. We will have the 35 to 36 transit present every day. Almost until June, with only short breaks, it will stop for a bit and then start again. And so during these particularly impactful transits, of course, at least half of all humanity, that is the half that is more emotionally open and receptive, will inevitably experience that truly terrible, hollow, scarecrow-like darkness. Or, on the opposite end of the spectrum, some incredibly wild fit of overwhelming euphoria. Thinking something like, oh, come on, everything is absolutely going to be fine. The very worst is finally behind us, and now I feel like I can do anything. This will especially happen after some critical events. Well, I think it's a need for endorphins. After some difficult moments, our body naturally needs endorphins. It naturally needs the peak of the wave. That's why. Until the beginning of June, there will be very long-term transits with the 35 to 36 channel. We will be seriously tripping between the horror and darkness of life, in the literal sense, the dimming of the light. Then we'll be tripping between euphoria like, nah, everything will be fine. Dan read it. Funny. So while I was getting ready, I suddenly saw on Telegram, there was suddenly, I don't know, a bunch of Telegram channels. Well, they're always endlessly stealing stuff from each other. Suddenly I saw a photo posted, the one where Donald Trump was photographed against the flag. Was it in 2017 or whatever year that was? In 17? In 17, I think, right? Yeah. I don't remember. Well, basically when he won the election. And next to it, they put a photo of how he looks now, after winning the election, also taken against the flag. I was delighted. And I made a slide like that because it's so much about this year. It's exactly about this year. And the funniest thing is, the whole Trump is about this year. In this sense, just so you understand, he really will be pedaling hard this year, the year of the program. First of all, because he was elected president of the United States. The US is one of the most influential countries in the world. It can influence the course of various political events, those related to wars, and also those related to international diplomacy and elections. Our well-being in ecosystems and so on. The US is a fucking badass country. Badass. And he was elected its president, first of all. And secondly, being elected its president and having an incredibly strong ego. In addition to this, he also has received a channel from the esteemed program of the year, one and then another. So from my personal perspective, he is truly, roughly speaking, the driving force of this year. A very, very instrumental part of this year's program. He really is an instrument of this year's program. So it's definitely not a coincidence that all those photos came out. And now I look at 2017. Oh, that's 35 to 36, Vivarium of Hope. of course, with a certain mega. It's very obvious, 45 to 21, and that's 45 to 21 in a good mood. He's euphoric. He was just elected, everything is going to be fine. After that comes experience, his experience of leadership. Then comes the experience of his attempt to get re-elected for a second term. And that experience was so-so, just like any experience is so-so. For all of us, any experience, what makes us more experienced? Any experience is connected with certain challenges. That's what makes us wiser. That's what makes us more mature. That's what makes us smarter. That's what broadens our understanding of the possibilities for expressing this life. And all of this, I have to say, is rather unpleasant. Well, I mean, there aren't that many things that are both pleasant and expand your understanding of the world at the same time. For a clear example, let's say you go to the zoo, and in your mind you might believe that animals are fundamentally gentle and sweet little creatures that you should be able to just scratch on the nose, who eat very delicately with their little mouths, and who absolutely deserve to be adored, cherished, and loved by all. And as you slowly walk past all of these cages, and the faces of camels, antelopes, and monkeys reach out towards you, and you feed them a small treat, and if it is allowed, you can gently pet them, your fundamental understanding of the wider world will not truly expand. You'll leave with that experience. But if suddenly a deer attacks you and starts kicking the fence, putting your life in danger, or if a camel suddenly spits at you, it's unpleasant, but it instantly broadens the boundaries of your worldview. Because that's a new experience, and a lot will be connected to that. It will make you more cautious. It will trigger certain thought processes. It might even change your path entirely. You might stop going to the zoo forever, and so on. Experience changes us. Experience makes us look at life differently. Here is Mr. Donald Trump after his experiences. The president-elect of the United States at the end of 2024 looks different. And for me, he embodies this year, especially with this photo. The only difference is that this is the face of a boss who is now about to make a comeback. He's going to take revenge for, so to speak, the feelings that were trampled on for having gone through that darkness after all those humiliations when he wasn't elected, then dragged through the courts and all that crap. This is the face, the look of a person who's about to take revenge. And at the same time, it's the face of the bottom of the wave of 35 to 36. So once again, what kind of channel is this anyway? The channel is called Transience. The channel's design is called Jack of all trades. The channel type is manifestor. The motor hits the throat. Just so you understand, this is the program of the year. There won't be any of that here. This is what we tell everyone with this channel. Filter it, filter it. Don't make any hasty decisions. When you've made a decision, filter it before announcing it. Filter it. It's just the year, it's the program. That's why here. The power of emotions hits right in the throat, and it will keep doing this all year long. This is the channel's outline, the framework for reflection, an abstract code. I just spoke about it on the previous slide. This channel belongs to a framework that requires going through experiences. And in going through these experiences, this channel demands that you gain experience from every aspect of life. First and foremost, we learn from unpleasant, genuinely scary aspects, and especially from things that involve a significant risk to life. This is because if you haven't personally had a scary experience, you most likely won't be as cautious or prepared the next time around. So if you've been walking in the forest for many years and always picked only wild strawberries, only gathered wild strawberries and ate them, well, good for you. That's awesome. That's cool. It means you have an integrative system and you have nothing in the abstract circuit, absolutely nothing. But if you lived in the forest, walked through the forest, and you have something from the abstract circuit, especially 35 to 36, it means you'll walk through the forest, see beautiful shimmering pearly berries, and you'll want to try them. Of course. Otherwise, you could go your whole life without ever finding out what those berries are and how they affect you. Well, in the worst case, the person will die. That's the worst case scenario. Well, not the worst. Maybe it'll just be poisoning, some vomiting, diarrhea, or a hallucinogenic state. And so, through this experience comes an expanded understanding of the world, about how these berries can do these kinds of things, how you should use them. Meaning comes after experience. We understand the meaning of things. We understand the meaning of berries. We understand the meaning of camels, that they weren't just made for us to pet them. They also spit. We understand meanings. Experience is necessary. Experience is necessary. Well, what can I say? Well, it's scary that we'll be forced to go through an experience. We don't know what kind, we just don't know. Even though we have a description. So we have this channel formed by gate 36 and gate 35. And I didn't mark gate 36 twice. We have a description of these lines, so in principle, we know what the experience will be like. And now somewhere in some place, we'll be reading awareness of feelings. This is a stream of awareness. And here, awareness comes through feelings. For a person, when someone has 35 to 36, we say, listen, you have an amazing tool, an absolutely wonderful one. These are your feelings. The thing is, though, at first, everything you feel doesn't know anything, doesn't mean anything. Let this wave pass. In other words, this first wave means nothing. Let it pass. To become fully aware of what you are actually feeling, it is important to understand that you need time. For example, we tell someone with a 35 to 36, if you've received some letter or an email, it is very important that you read it. And everything you feel means nothing. Close that email and give yourself 3 days. After 3 days, you'll definitely feel something. Some of what you felt will remain. Some of what you felt when you first opened the letter will completely disappear. You'll feel something or something new will emerge. And what you feel after 3 days, that's it. Of course, not after a year. Naturally, I know 35, 36 who put things off for a year. They want to feel something for a whole year. But all of that is distortion. It's all a false interpretation of how to make decisions. It's all a misunderstanding. 3 days. Put it off for 3 days. We say this to a person with the 35 to 36 channel, but when we look at the program for the year, we say only one thing. This year, the world will be turning white. Throwing out their genuine feelings. What does that really mean for them? The entire world, and indeed every single person in it, will have to decide something incredibly important this year. So why on earth are they putting up with so much needless struggle and not just doing what needs to be done? Why? Why? And why? This life is the only one we have. So what is the actual point of waiting? This is the underlying program, the very program that ensures that, except for those who just follow strategy and authority, all the rest of us, almost like we're in the Muppet Show, will be the ones deciding what exactly we have to endure in the end. What? For so many years, I've been suffering, saving money, denying myself everything, can't even go anywhere, somewhere. You went, Zina, I'm going to go to this. It's scary, of course, because we have G, Putin, who is a manifestor under the program, right under the program, under the program. So, and this G, Putin with an open solar plexus, this means that the entire 35 to 36 transit, which goes day by day, not the yearly program, will all be affecting him. It will have an effect on him specifically until June. So, and this G, Putin, God only knows what goes through his head when he's under the program. So I've wanted to do this for so long and kept not doing it, but now I want to do it. I want to drop a nuclear bomb, damn it, on Ukraine. In this sense, it's scary. It's scary. It's scary, really scary. When at the end of times a manifestor is in power, it's scary, just really, really scary. Especially a manifestor with an open solar plexus on whom transits have an incredible impact on the mind. All right, let's move on. Well, let's dive into history, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. But we can look at what has happened from 1781 to our time. Over 244 years, there have been years with 35 to 36 in the annual program. 1798, 1859, 1891, 1895, 1914. And you all already feel tense. 1956. Anyone who knows about the Hungarian uprising is tense too. 1967, and now ours, 2025. For those who don't believe it, let me show you. 1798, 35 to 36 in the program. That's exactly 7 years after the arrival of the nine-centered beings. There was a reflector year in 1790, I think. Oh, wow, that is actually really cool. I will definitely need to check that out for myself. Wait, hold on just a minute here. A reflector year, is that what you said? And you're telling me the year was 1789? Then here something is happening or not happening. So 789, and here 98, no, that's not it. In short, 1798, that is 536. 1791, you see 35, 36. 1859, you see 35, 36. 1895. You see 35, 36. What's cool is that you can immediately see, for example, that 89, 91, and 95 also had 2750. They also had 2750. That is just like in our year. We also have the years 1914, 1935, and 1936. And this phenomenon, it really did dance all around the entire planet, of course. Then we see 1956, and again 1935 and 36, and 2750. 1967, 35, 36, and 2750. And here is our year 2025. We can do a very quick overview. 1798, that's when Napoleon is just starting to come to power. That's Napoleon Bonaparte himself, not yet an emperor, but already a general. Not yet the top general, but already a general, and already looking at how to climb even higher, how to actually take power into his own hands. Well, manifest, what are you doing? So the Egyptian expedition, Napoleon occupies Egypt, and that was entirely his own initiative. He believed that by doing so, he would win trust. Oh Lord, this is right after the French Revolution has just taken place. Well, basically the Directorate. It was a mixed bag of people who were running the country at that time. At the same time, the Ottoman Empire, which was allied with Egypt, sees this situation and declares war on France. And then France forms a coalition. Something very much like that, in effect, a precursor to a world war. Actually, sorry, not France. At that time, it was the Ottoman Empire, which was very powerful then, that formed an anti-French coalition with England, Austria, and the kingdoms in Italy, because Italy was not yet a unified country. (1859). That's already a real leap forward, when the canal is once again at the center of attention in 1859 to 1860. Here, there was quite a large war for Europe, the Austro-Italian-French War. In Italy, they called it the Second War of Independence. It seems to me that all these things we know from literature, again from Byron, who wrote a poem about Italian revolutionaries, partisans, and all that. Well, it seems like all of this was already under Napoleon III. He started this particular war for one main reason. He was determined to drive the nation of Austria completely out of the Apennine Peninsula. And so, with this goal in mind, he began the war, and it was quite a bloody clash for those times. That's one event from 1859, but the second one is much more interesting to me. Actually, I posted these slides on Facebook, so you could have read them. This is the geomagnetic storm of 1859, the Carrington event. Carrington was either a physicist or an astronomer who studied the question of why in 1859. Suddenly, all the telegraphs that were already working at that time just shut down. some electrical devices that existed back then, why everything went out all over the world. So this event was named after him. Later on, subsequent research would eventually show that this was, in fact, the largest geomagnetic storm on record. Oh, excuse me. More accurately, a geomagnetic solar storm that reached us from the sun, and the index of this storm, some studies claim it was 1,750 Tesla. Tesla is a unit of measurement for magnetic field or magnetic field induction. I'm not a physicist. Some say 1,750 Tesla, while others say 900 Tesla, but it doesn't matter. Either way, it's off the charts. What I want to say is that if such a magnetic storm were to hit Earth today, absolutely everything would go down. Because, for example, the Quebec blackout of 1989, I watched a program about the Quebec blackout and I couldn't find it anywhere else. By chance, purely by chance. We lived on Nagornaya Street. We had a TV sitting on the piano and it was never turned on. I needed to do some ironing, so I turned on the TV and suddenly there was a program about the Quebec blackout. I dropped everything. I stood there for 40 minutes until the program ended because the TV was up high on the piano and I just stood there watching. How seriously did the solar magnetic storm damage the equipment in Quebec? They had no electricity for 3 days, and this was March 13th. It was cold, it was Canada. That is, the generators in the hospitals worked. They ran for a few more hours, and then they also shut down. But what struck me the most, of course, wasn't that the sun knocked out substations in Canada. No. What shocked me the most was the level of looting that began in a darkened Canada as soon as night fell and there was nothing lit anywhere, no lights at all. The level of looting, the level of robberies, the level of antisocial behavior. That's what really struck me back then, that broadcast. So that was only 640 Teslas, 1891. Indeed, looking back, that specific year, the year 1891, was a truly terrible, devastating, and catastrophic famine. That is the disastrous crop failure of the summer of 1891, and here you see 1935 to 1936. But to be fair, the struggle is also present here in this solar year. So the terrible crop failure of 1891, caused by abnormal weather, led to a situation where the peasants had nothing to feed themselves or the country. And accordingly, in 1892, all of this naturally developed into a terrible epidemic from which, according to the most conservative estimates, 400,000 people died from hunger and the epidemic. That's what it says on the internet. 1895, I won't talk about that. If anyone is interested in the Doukhobors, I also wrote about them on Facebook. You can read it there. 1914. So World War I began in 1914. Someone shot someone else. Some revolutionary from Serbia shot the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Franz Joseph, and killed him. And that was it. Things took off. And everything started spiraling. You see, that was a year of emotions. No one was thinking rationally back then. No one was keeping a cool head. There was no room for common sense. And that's it. Just emotions. That's how they are. There's no common sense in emotions if they're not filtered, if there's no awareness born from them, of which feelings should actually be brought into this world and which shouldn't. The year 1956 was without question a truly terrible year, a period marked by significant hardship and widespread challenges. Again, it's a point that bears repeating. Every European should know it as the year of the Hungarian uprising against the Soviet regime and the year of the brutal suppression of that uprising. That's kind of funny too, 2,750. Now start lighting the candles. When I tell you something, I'm not just saying it for no reason. Go ahead and check those boxes for yourselves. 1967? Read it in the transcript. And I actually wrote down all these disasters. because I was digging through Wikipedia, looking up what happened when, and when I opened up 67, I was shocked by the sheer number of disasters. Maybe back then I thought, well, this is already a technical revolution, so to speak. The world is moving from steam locomotives to diesel engines to airplanes. Obviously, there will be a learning curve, which will always be accompanied by some design flaws that will lead to crashes and all that sort of thing. Actually, I told myself, if you open up any year, there are a ton of these disasters. So I went and opened up any random year. Then I opened the next year on Wikipedia. Well, no, there were fewer. Because I couldn't fit a picture with the design of the solar on that page. But in 68, it fit fewer, 1/3 fewer disasters. And I didn't have time to do statistics for some other years, the ones that don't have 35 to 36, and check the number of disasters. I physically didn't have the opportunity to do that. But just by comparing 2 years, you can see it. And as I already mentioned, it's not just in the annual program. Not just that, we have 75 days of transits. In fact, we've actually had 35 to 36 for a long time now. Those of you who attended the year-end transit seminar, you heard this. Since the beginning of December, it's been at 35 to 36, and it still is now. And of course, it brings its own darkness, but before that, we had a different annual program. So it's just a transit. Well, a transit is a transit. An emotional transit is just an emotional transit. But then suddenly, bam. And since January 21st, the 35 to 36 transit is still ongoing, but the program has changed to Solaris 35 to 36.